Welcome to episode 7 of Sorcery 102 Beyond the Ordinary. I'm Portland Stu here with my broadcast partner.
Yeah, Bobby, also known as Ringslay, sometimes on Discord. So yeah, welcome.
Yeah, we've got a hot button issue that we're going to talk about today. Today, Sorcery 102 is going to discuss the water problem. Dun dun
Yeah.
dun.
Sounds so dramatic when you say it like that.
Well, and I think, we have a short list of sort of discussion topic. Also, check out my pond shirt, courtesy of Sorcery Con. Very cool.
Fantastic.
I guess the first thing on our list is to define like what is the water problem. At this point we've had our first big event, and if you look at the statistics from Sorcerer's Summit and whatnot, we can see pretty clearly like the top 8 had 5 of the 8 decks were water dominant. In the top 32, almost 50% of decks were water as their primary element. So we can definitely see that water appears to be the strongest element out the gate in Gothic, right?
Yeah, I think that seems fair. The other thing I'm looking at on the Sorcerer's Summit is the number or the card usage statistics, and looking at what cards were popular and how many decks, percentage of decks, and how many total there were. And toolbox was the most used, but then after that it's Troll Bridge, then Thin Ice, then the anomaly of the top 10 is Violent, then Koi Nixie, Lugbog Cat, Swap, Torch Hammer Trinket, and Lighthouse, I believe, round out the top 10 there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, Failed Mutation is the 10th. And then 11th and 12th are Order of the Sacred Oak and then Lord of Lies. And the only reason the only reason Violent is as high as it is because you can play 4 of them in your deck.
And Fire was the second.
Fire was
Fire's
most popular.
Yeah, like kind of the second most popular primary element. It's also interesting how air is the support element of Gothic. I guess
it is.
Yeah, our goal for this video is to not get lost in the weeds on a couple of the sort of side points of the water problem, which is Necromancer. We're not going to go in depth on Necromancer and its dominance because we'll do that in another video. I don't think we're going to focus overly on the water with air as a support and like why air is so good as a support for really every element. I think we want to focus on what's going on with water, and I think those statistics are a great starting point. Just seeing like these two sites, Trollbridge and Thin Ice, are defining the game at this point, right?
Yeah. And there's 2 exceptionals. They're both water sites, and there's 6 of them in your 30 card atlas. So that's 20% of your deck, if my math is not failing me.
Yeah.
And they pair beautifully with obviously, Koi Nixie pulled that up there, but they pair beautifully with Koi Nixie, but they also are just Abaddon Succubus. But there's just so many little things that go well with it. Riptide as well, and all the other forced movement sites that exist in water. It just pairs really nicely together and builds a really powerful base for this deck. And I think you're right that those sites are pretty big pieces of the consistency. I think they rely on the backbone of those 4 cards you've got pulled up there. But then that's half the problem for sure, I think. And just having that board control presence is just a lot.
Yeah, and I think, to sort of finish stating the water problem, right?
Oh, yeah.
Before Gothic, water had the best uniques, and everyone knew that, right? And Steam Druid was always strong, where like fire was your sort of solid, get you through the early game, and then water had these sort of big swingy cards that you could drop in We even saw mono water take first and third in the Australian crossroads. Like, so water was always strong, but I think before Gothic, it was the fire problem, not the water problem, where everyone felt like you sort of had to play fire because aggression was so strong. And I think what's happened now with Gothic is water got the last few tools it needed, where like water, even a full mono water deck, can handle aggro. It's got, it used to have Lugbog Cat, which is a great sort of early game defensive minion, but now you also have Order. You also have Thin Ice, which makes Nixie even more potent early. Like Water got a lot of solid 4 cost minions too, things like Failed Mutation and Sacred Stag, where it just has become like the weaknesses in Water kind of got filled in, and now it's just the strongest element.
Yeah, and I think that that's actually kind of interesting because you're saying that the pieces have always been there and the power level has always been high on the uniques and elites in water, which is true. And then, but there were some weak points before where you didn't have those early drops as easily. You didn't have as many good 4 for 4s. I mean, yeah, like yeah, there were just all these pieces that were could be, or there were holes that could be poked with other elements. But now that you have such a smooth, solid curve with your twos, threes, fours, two threes and fours, which is like the heart of the deck. You're like 2/3 of your deck is now just solid, nearly perfect defensive, but also
Hmm.
can be insanely fast, aggressive pieces. The fact that those exist in the core of your deck, and then you get to also have those super powerful uniques on top of it. You have Mesmerism, you have Atlantean Fate, you have it's not a unique, but Lord of Lies. There's these pieces that are just more powerful than their counterparts in unique for other elements.
Yeah.
And I think that so previously the fire problem was just that the early game that fire provided was so much better than the early game that anything else could provide, right?
Mm.
So now
Yeah.
now now the answer to that fire problem was now everything has ways to deal with that early game.
Yeah.
And fire and other elements did not get those big high value splashy uniques. I mean there are good ones like Baylor is good and uh, Boogeyman is good and Archangel Michael is good and Sturmgeist is awesome. But like there's just all these there
Yeah.
are all other pieces, but they're not quite on the same level as Mesmerism, Atlantean Fate, and Lord of Lies. Like those 3 cards, I feel reasonably comfortable saying are the most powerful effects in Sorcery. Like
Yeah.
Mesmerism doesn't go back; it's always yours. There's one card that can counter it, um,
Yeah.
and that's
King
something
Arthur.
only
Yeah.
playable in Arthur, and it's only playable in Elementalist.
Yeah.
And there's nothing. I mean, there's ways to blow up in Atlantean Fate, but like it takes away your threshold. Huge. It drowns everything there. It just does so much. And then Lord of Lies, obviously, especially paired with Grapple Shot, deal 18 is just overpowered. But deal 12 is also pretty insane
Yeah.
when
The
you get to
fact that
Avatar and then use the ability to fight the Avatar. It's very powerful. So nothing else exists in the game that is on that level, from my perspective. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe that's something that our commenters can help point out to us. Is
yeah.
our listeners can help us with like what are we missing that does the same thing in Earth, Fire, and Air? Because I've done a lot of digging and I haven't found them.
Yeah. It's hard. Well, and my final thought on like how it's different than the fire problem was sort of before Gothic is the other thing with water is the odd element out. So like all of water's effects on the board are sort of specific to body of right. Like submerge only matters for water minions, whereas earth, air, and fire all exist in the same world together. They all exist on land. And so when fire was dominant, it felt like everything was still viable as a response to it, right? Like you could try and use Root Spider, you could try and use Troll Bridge, right? Like there was a lot of counterplay in all the elements. And when the board is dominated by water, it kind of feels like Earth just becomes almost unplayable, right? Because
We saw
things
that in the statistics at Sorcery.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like there was 0 Earth in the top 8 and like a tiny percentage of Earth in the top 32, right? And so I feel like water, it is, I think, harder for the game when water is the dominant element than any other element being. Because I imagine this will happen with every set, is like a new element will emerge as sort of they overcorrected for it, right? And
Mhm.
but it does seem like water shuts down a lot of the rest of the elements in a bigger way, like the flood mechanic and things like Atlantean Fate do have like a more oppressive feel to the game, whereas in the fire dominated meta it was like, oh, can I overcome the aggression, right? And it felt like a very lively interplay. If you were playing aggro versus aggro, then it was just aggro versus aggro, but if you weren't leaning into that aggro, like it still felt like a game. And a lot of the games against water can feel a little bit like everything just had no said to them. And water is, it's like blue, where there's not counter spells, but it is sort of like everything you do, I just kind of say, no, that doesn't work anymore. Like I succubus
Yeah.
your thing into a troll bridge, or you put out a threat and I nix, right? Like everything is just sort of negating the other elements rather than sort of going toe to toe with them.
Yeah, and I think that it felt like the fact that it operates on a different plane because of submerge is different than burrowed. They're different regions, and uh, only water has access to submerged minions in most cases. And there are some other submerged minions in other elements, but mostly it's water. Um, there's the seven
Yeah,
cost seven
hounds.
power thing in Earth, and then there's hounds. But like
Yeah,
there's very limited things that can be submerged in other
yeah,
and survive in other elements. So that feels like a different. Whereas there are things that can be burrowed in most elements, and I think that just because of the way that water is different, we might end up with a everything versus water balance a lot
yeah,
just because of how it functions. And that's totally fine. But maybe they can balance it with more bottomless pit type effects or things like that, right? Where like air becomes a bigger issue, or uh, being on fire becomes a bigger issue. Where like there's a maybe it's not regions, but whatever. They might be able to come up with ways to make it more like 4 point asymmetry, not 2-on-1 or 3-on-1
mm,
asymmetry.
yeah,
um, but I think that's a different topic of game design that interests me, but probably not everyone else. But I think that because it is different, we're always going to have some discussion or some focus on this. But I think because of the power level of the uniques is the underlying issue from my perspective in a lot of ways. Because like if it was just the early game aggression or the early game control aspect of it. Like if I played a water deck that didn't have Mesmerism, Atlantean Fate, and Lord of Lies, it would be a good deck. It would be a good deck, but there is less of the huge blowout potential from my
yeah,
perspective. And maybe I'm missing something. But what are your thoughts on that?
yeah. And I was kind of gonna save this for later in the video, but I did do some
Sorry,
numbers research. But I know, let's go for it now. Close these other things out. But so I did sort of the uniques and elite counts of decks from the top 16 at Sorcery Con, right? And if we just look at some of the top 8 ones, right? The first place deck has 35 of its spellbook total is unique or elite. That's water. Second place, 29. And then the third place fire deck is 21. And we kind of see this like this other Mist Necro is around 30. And then like the Avatar of Air is like 20. The Battle Mage is 25. So like you definitely see and then I went in and found some other examples. I put my deck in there too just for fun. At 23, like the Archie that took ninth place was 23. Things like the Persecutor deck, the highest performing Persecutor had 16 uniques and elites. Like the only deck I found that came close to that like 30 plus uniques and elite count that wasn't just a water deck was an elementalist deck, which makes sense. Like elementalist, you always get to play sort of extra uniques and elites because of that threshold.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, I do think the high propensity of uniques and elites is big in water. This is the interesting thing I found though, is I did some numbers on across all the cards in the game for each element, how many cards have a once per turn effect that's beneficial. I didn't count things like lose 2 life a turn, right? And water vastly outstrips the other
Wow.
elements in once per turn effects. And if you look at like particularly like this is including end of turn and start of turn, but the actual just 1 time per turn in just looking at the spells, there's 4 water spells with really good once per turn effects, which means you get them the turn you play it, and then 12 at end of turn. So like just looking at these 2 categories, these are the ones you get the turn you play it. And so we have across sites and spells 19 water cards that get an effect the turn they play it, and if they stay on the board, they get that effect every turn. And like the next closest is fire, not surprisingly. And fire is what, like 6,
Yes,
and not is
16 written.
15.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really well, that's including starter turn too. But yeah, so
You know
it's
what's
just
interesting about
crazy.
those numbers? So
What?
the numbers there are 25 in water, 16 in fire, 15 in air, and 7 in earth. The percentage of those is the percentage of card of those elements that showed up in decks. Um,
Interesting.
that is almost exactly what we see in the percentages. So you expect water is the highest, and then fire and air are kind of middle ground, and then earth is at the bottom, which is actually interesting because I hadn't actually thought of that as a metric, but that is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah, it's definitely you can see how the like having recurring value in your cards is a very big. I mean, we've always said you want a card to do something the turn you play it. Like that's been a
Yeah.
metric I think on everyone's radar forever, right? Like that's why Genesis
Mhm.
abilities and charge has always been so good because charge is like I get to do something with this minion the turn I play it. But things that
Did
you
you
get
include that in fire?
I did not include charge in that list, no, because charge isn't recurring, right?
Oh
So
yeah,
I
that's fine.
didn't count Genesis abilities either. Charge to me is
Okay.
like a Genesis ability, which I didn't do the Genesis numbers. But I imagine Genesis is probably fire dominant, but pretty even is my feeling on it
I'd say that water is probably the lowest,
for Genesis. Yeah, that's true. But I think
but fire
that's
has the most char. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
yeah. I just think it's interesting that I think we were all looking at sort of on play power, but there's also this element of on every turn powers.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because when you play your Abaddon Succubus, and when you play your Lord of Lies, and when you play your Koi Nixie, or your whatever it is, you're wanting to be able to use that ability. So you play your Koi Nixie and you pull something into a Thin Ice. You play down your Abaddon Succubus, you pull something in, hit it for 2, and kill it with a skeleton. You want to be able to get that value right away. Like you want to set that up. You hold the card until you get that set up
Yeah,
in a lot of cases. So yeah, I mean
but
that is a huge
now
deal.
it's a bigger problem because it repeats too. It's not just you got it when you played it.
Yeah,
So
if
my
it was on turn or whatever, yeah, that might.
Yeah. So my question for you though is how do you think like I think we've well and truly shown that water is the dominant element right now. What do you think that means for the community? Like is it even a problem, right? Like maybe we just embrace that Gothic is the water age and we all play different versions of water decks or like what do you think? Do you think it's a bad thing for the community and or not? Like
I
what's your take
I
on
think
that?
I think that the bad thing for why it would be bad for the community is there are some people who just don't want to play water, or they're like counter to the counter culture, where they or counter to the culture, and they just want to not be playing the best thing, but they want to do well with not the best thing. And that is definitely a
Mhm.
big part of card building community in general, right? We want to, or deck building card games in general. We want to feel clever when we build stuff. And I think that this does put a damper on that, because at least at high level play, at high level play, when you show up to SCG Con, or you show up to a Cornerstone or a Crossroads, and you want to fight and play the best deck, you need to be able to beat this deck. You need to be able
Mhm.
to. And if it's a coin flip into the mirror, it's a coin flip into the mirror. That's what you've got, right? Like, and that might be the best we can do. But if you're at a random local event and you don't want to play water, don't play water. Just don't do it. And if you see a water player, you're gonna lose. But we're playing a game,
Yeah.
so like
And maybe you won't
that's
lose.
okay.
Like there's
And maybe
still
you won't. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
like there is still a chance, right? Like they might just not draw their pieces. They might play poorly. You might be able to be out clever them and be good into it. But in general, you just can accept that it might feel unfair. It's gonna feel like
Yeah.
bringing a knife to a gunfight. Sorry, we might, we're not monetized. It doesn't matter. But I, it's like bringing something it's just unfair, right? To just
Yeah.
be not in water. It is kind of an unfair thing. But like, is competitive play the reason I play sorcery? Not really. Like, we're here to
Yeah.
have fun with the community and hang out and chat and talk about strategy and how these things work and piece things together and feel clever and build awesome stuff and have fun and talk and just play this really cool game. And if that
Yeah.
means that I just stop sleeving at Mesmerism and Atlantean Fate and Lord of Lies and play water without those, I'm happy to do that. It's like, there are fun things. I actually really enjoy the Koi Nixie and Abaddon Succubus. I might be crazy, but I actually like that. What I don't like is the bigger things, but that's
Hmm.
beyond the point, I think. But
Yeah.
for me, if you just on a random night playing sorcery with your friends, then we can maybe self-correct and build decks that we want.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my take on the effect for the community is like I kind of see three levels to the community. There's the online community, the major event community, and then your local. And like on the local scene, water being OP doesn't bother me that much. Like it's a little bit, like this weekend there's going to be an event and first place prize is a grand meowster wizard, and I'm not bringing a water deck because I want to play the fun deck that I've been messing around with that I know is not that good. And for a second, I was tempted, like, oh, maybe I just play a water deck because I want that Grand Meowster. But, it'll be even more satisfying to get it if I can do it with my Bone Kite Dragon Lord pet deck. and, and if I don't get it,
Yeah,
then I'm gonna have a great time and it's a local event. So I feel like for local scene, water, like the water problem isn't a big deal. I think for competitive in-person events, I'm kind of neutral about it, right? Like I think we'll all be playing, the most powerful archetype or something designed to counter it. And that's just how top level competitive events will always be, right?
yeah,
And so right now it's going to be water decks and things that feel like they have a shot against water deck. And I'm kind of okay with that. It's a little less exciting than a like wide open, diverse meta, but it's not doesn't ruin sorcery. But
yeah,
online, I do think it's a problem because like I think I've noticed this. I think play is going down online right now, and it's because online, like I always treat online like things like the summit or Ira's league is where I play what I think is the best deck and try and do well online, and like is great because I can't attend that many large events in person. But for that, having this like more narrow viability spectrum is kind of, I think, turning players off and makes me a little less excited because it's like, oh, if I want to make top 16 on the summit, maybe I just keep playing this deck that I know is really good. But like, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it hurts the online scene a little more than it hurts the in person. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think being that we both play online and we both try hard and are tryhards in the Summit League
Yeah.
and trying to get in that top 16. I think that that means that we're probably in a little bit of an echo chamber with it.
Hmm.
But it also is kind of discouraging because if you want to play your fun deck and you're like, I've got this really fun, really powerful deck that has good matchups into the field. Oh, except water, they just kind of crush me because they just crush me. And
Yeah.
then like that feels really terrible.
Yeah.
And like even if it is like a 50-50, you're fighting the uphill battle and it just feels hard.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to track my metrics and see how it goes, but I don't do well into water necro and water, or I don't do well into water necro. The other water decks I'm okay into with my other decks, but the water necro does not do. I don't do well into it.
Yeah.
So
So,
I guess the next question then is, if it's a problem online, if that's the place where it's a problem, does there need to be a solution?
mm,
And like, because like the the vast majority of people who play sorcery are not playing online. They're going to random local events. And they're playing on Monday nights and Sundays and Saturdays and Fridays and whenever they get a chance to actually go out there and grab their physical cards and play on a table. Is the water, since the water's not a problem for that, is it a problem at all?
yeah. I mean, in some ways, I think it's not that big of a problem. Like, I think it's a small problem that feels bigger to those of us who play online a lot.
Yeah.
Right, because the online games start to feel repetitive. Or like right now, what I'm doing online is basically because I can't play that much right now. I'm busy. I just play a water necro in the hopes that I lose. Right, like I'm trying.
Yeah.
At first, I was trying to build a deck that beats it, and then I decided I don't have the time to do as much brewing as I need to solve this. So I'm just going to be the bad guy and hope I find the hero who's solved it. You know?
Yeah. I think the hero is going to be found in places we don't want to look. Uh,
Yeah, Archimago.
it's going to be found with Archie and Druid.
Yeah, I do think Druid is, and I think it's interesting. Like in the water meta, this doesn't answer your question of if it's a problem, but I do think if we just embrace the meta as water dominant, there is some really interesting stuff in terms of the different waters, right? So Druid as a water that probably does really well into Necro water is really interesting because with water's all of its forced movement effects, Druid's Thorn's ability becomes a lot more potent.
Yeah.
But then I think there's also things like right before Gothic, I was playing a mono water Vatten Draconis Dragon Lord, and I've heard whispers of that coming up right now, and that sort of more submerge focused water because like this water necro and even this water druid, most of the cards in the deck don't have submerge, right?
Yeah.
Like none of these
It's
sort of
just the Koinixie.
it's just Koinixie. And so
Yeah.
playing a water deck that maybe Vatten Draconis or Wave Shaper or some, like, or maybe you play even Avatar of Water and play more of like the submergy spells, although all of those can kind of hit anywhere. But something along those lines of sort of if everyone's in water, I'm going to be even more watery than the water. Or
Yeah. I think that that's actually the answer that I think we are going to end on here, or at that. Not maybe this isn't the end, but like the where I'm ending up in my head is okay. Water is the thing. Perfect. That means I have steam, I have mist, and I have mud. I can work in those. I can work in those three places. I can
or
stay in those
mono.
four, or
You
mono
know
water.
the
You got four viable element combinations, plus the triples and big
yeah.
things. But anyway, you got those four that just like get to be a starting point for your elements. That's okay. I can start with that. Then you have all the avatars. and there are some that are not good, so you can throw those out. But there are also just a lot of good avatars that can be used still. You still do have Druid, you still do have Necromancer, you have Dragon Lord, you have Sorcerer, you have Persecutor, you have whatever they are, whatever your savior, what I don't know, all of them,
Yeah.
the good ones. We all know what they are when we look at them. But you have that's still a lot of decks. And then
Yeah.
because of the way each individual avatar changes how you build your deck and how you put it together, maybe all the decks do have Atlantean Fate, Mesmerism, like maybe they have those packages, but there's some of those decks that just don't want the Koi Nixie thing.
Hmm.
And then there are some of them that don't want Lugbog Cat, or like there's just some of those, especially some of those lower pieces. There are some of those that just aren't needed in all those decks, and those spots can be filled out with other elements. So I'm currently toying around with Steam Druid. It's fun. I like Steam Druid. That's really fun right now. It does have
Yeah.
some of the good cards, some of these good cards we're talking about, but it also has some fun fire cards that I really like. So I think
Yeah.
that is an interesting. I think that might be my solution to it for where it's a problem on is okay, water's a problem, water's what I need to be in, but then just let that be okay.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where I'm at with online as well. But it does. I don't like when I'm brewing different decks for in person than I am for online. So that's still a
Yeah,
downside to me. I
that
guess
is a pretty
so.
big downside. Yeah.
Yeah, the final question. Well, I wanted to ask is how do you think? And I mean, here we're just speculating wildly. How do you think the state of water in sorcery right now will affect future sets and like the releases to come?
I don't know if it will.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it will, maybe it won't. There might be some more anti-water stuff that comes out in other elements. I think that we actually didn't talk about this, but there are only two anti-water cards in
Mm,
all of sorcery, and it's Drought and Boil. There's the ones that are like actively anti-water,
yeah.
um, and they're both in fire. There are a lot of anti-land cards in water that are
Mm,
anti the other three elements. So I think that maybe what it could do, or a direction it could go that would be positive, is more anti-water cards in more elements to open that up. But like also there's just a ton of design space to be explored here. So like I think that
yeah.
anything we say is complete speculation. I think that the most likely thing is it doesn't really affect anything, and they go a little lighter on the pushedness of water uniques.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
That
my
seems like the most likely.
yeah, I mean, the obvious effect of a dominant element that leans heavily on uniques and elites is that they print more busted elites and uniques in other elements, right? And then the
Yeah,
game just becomes more and more this like pile of unique and elite decks, which for me I don't love. Like that so I hope that's not where they go, is just like the power creep approach. And
yeah,
I do think printing the counters, like this is 100% off topic, but I think about Archimago all the time. It's such a potent deck. It's still one of the strongest decks, but we have really powerful anti Archie cards now. And I've been saying I don't think they're strong enough. That like I think Archie should still be dominant, but they're right on the line. Like I think they actually dialed it in really well with the Archie hate and Gothic. I rescind my previous argument that the Archie hate isn't strong enough to stop Archie. Like it's right in that sweet spot where it's a risk to play Archie and you have to have answers to it. And Archie's running Peasant Revolt now and probably going to start running Rays and other tools for sort of like because the biggest issue are mismanaged mortuary and occult ritual, which you see like in these top tier decks, like they're or Bureau of Occult Control. Sorry, not Occult Ritual. People are playing these. And then there's some really good fire answers too. So I do think hate cards actually kind of work because it just makes everything more of a question, right? Like when I was building my Fire Pathfinder for Sorcery Con, I decided to run a mismanaged mortuary over, having something like another tower or something, right? Because I can only have so many slots for non-fire
Right.
cards in that deck because I really want to be able to handle Archie. So I need to increase my chances. And so I think especially if they print some anti-water sites, like that's to me, site hate is the most effective in some ways, right?
Do you think we're going to start seeing Sea of Ash get played? I'm starting to play it.
Oh yeah, I've seen it. It's around a lot now, and I've seen people try and run people who are in water and don't want to play Nixie running the iceberg too. But
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely think seeing more water hate in future sets I think is likely. Yeah, it'll be interesting. The
What do you think
game
about
is
erratas? Do you think they're going to go with any erratas?
that yeah, that was we people talk a lot about Lord of Lies either being made unique or just make it so it can't include itself, right? Like if Lord of Lies ability said to other target units rather than to target unit, it would be a way less busted card, right? Like, and it would be of similar power level to the other lords. Like, it's crazy how much higher its power level is than the other lords.
This should say other minions, not other units. But
I'm okay with
that's my
unit like
thought.
other minions. Yeah, as a would be even
The fact that it can
better
be a
for
death
just
blow,
nerfing it. Yeah,
like succubus, it can't be a death blow. That's
yeah,
one of the reasons succubus is actually okay, is it can't be a
yeah.
death blow.
Well, Nixie being able to hit avatars too has
Yep.
won me many games. Like
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Pull him
Yeah,
into it. Pull him into your troll bridge. Pull him into your thorns effect if you're on druid.
yeah. So my one take on the errata question. This is way way off topic, but I'm actually a bigger fan. I think I've become part of the ban don't errata school of thought, which is I go back and forth because errataing cards really stinks for new players joining the game, and just having cards out there that don't do what they say they do is a problem. Like I think the erratas they've done so far are all pretty reasonable and maybe needed. And for the most, like the only big errata is Druid, and an Avatar errata is a little safer. Like to me, keeping the erratas to the avatars makes a lot of sense because that's something you're gonna know, right? But
Yeah.
things that are on the spellbook cards are a little harder, especially when they're things that aren't like Grim Gisarm errata is barely an errata, right? Like it's more just about like making the card do what the essence of the text said. Like infiltrate is a little tougher where you have to like explain when someone plays the infiltrate like, oh no, it's not, it's when it loses stealth that you lose control of it, but it's still
Yeah.
more like errataing it to mean what it was supposed to mean. But literally changing cards to sort of nerf them just feels bad for the health of the game. Like I'd rather just
Especially in that we have physical cards, right? So
yeah.
like if it's for errata should be kept to Hearthstone and the card games that are like fully digital, right? Like
Yeah.
that when I was playing Hearthstone a long time ago, I was like, I loved the erratas. They were perfect. They were exactly what that
Mhm.
game needed. They're not what this game needs. I think that bans might be in order, but I don't know. I don't really love the idea of bans either.
Yeah, it feels bad. I just think bans make sense for competitive like event specific bans too. Like I love that our local events are doing shortlist avatar constructed events, right? Where it's like for this event we're doing 6 avatars and these are the avatars you can play. And I think there could be a lot more of that that then doesn't make your Ring of Morrigan worthless. It's just sort of like, oh, at the crossroads, we've banned Ring of Morgan, which Ring of Morgan isn't even really one I necessarily would want to ban, even though I don't have it. But
Yeah. I think that the when Ring shows up, it's pretty brutal. I think that it's actually a bigger liability to play. Well, this is a little off topic too, but I think a card we haven't talked about in Water that exists that makes Ring a liability is swap.
Mm-hmm.
I played a game yesterday. Um, I had my ring out. My opponent had their ring out. They swapped my ring with a skeleton, and they had two rings. And uh, there's just nothing you can do at that point. Like, that interaction won the game, and like that's fine. Like that's part of how sorcery was built, right? Like that huge
Mm-hmm.
splashy change, and that's awesome. Like that is really cool. It sucks, but it's also really cool on some level. So I think, and like the flavor of it, I don't know. But like
Yeah.
that just there's no way you win the game after that happens.
Yeah,
Like
we
unless you were
really
like literally dead, unless they were already dead. There's just that just isn't like any sort of parody. That's gonna take it all over.
and swap. We really missed the ball on talking about swap because swap is
Yeah,
one of the defining features that makes water clearly the best element right now.
yeah,
Because swap so cleanly answers so many other busted issues and works for death blow. Like it just does like swap does everything you could ever want a card to do.
yeah. The
It's a
biggest
it's a great.
questions, everything other than water can, or the biggest question that anything can ask in sorcery, swap answers it.
Yeah,
Like in the very cleanly answers it in a lot of cases. Like, oh, your opponent has a Boudica, swap it. Your opponent has a ring, swap it. Your opponent
yeah,
has a toolbox that you're worried about getting a zap, swap it.
yeah.
It just so many things. It is and it fits in that low curve removal
Hmm.
slot and just
Well,
does so much.
and it disincentivizes playing cards. I think we should have said it sooner in this video, but that's one of the biggest problems with water is that it turns your opponent's cards against them in so many ways because of forced movement and things like swap. Like swap makes so many plays a liability where it's like, oh, I have the ring, but do I play it because swap exists, right? Before swap, your only real concern is maybe they'll destroy my ring, and like that's okay, then it's worth the risk, right? But now with swap, it's my ring could become their ring, is like such a bigger threat. And it's true of a lot, like, so many different things. I mean, mesmerism's the same way, but it's unique. But these cards that sort of turn your opponent's cards against them. And swap neutralizes a lot of the Umphaloses too. Like swap against Umphalos, like and having an answer to Umphalos is hard a lot of the time.
Yeah, I don't know if it's really an answer against Omphalos. It's a partial answer against Omphalos.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess it depends on the deck you're playing against, but any deck where any deck that's minion centric, which is most deck, right? You're turning off half the cards that Omphalos might. Usually, more than half of a deck is minions, and so if you swap their Omphalos, then half the cards Omphalos might draw, probably even 65% become useless.
Yeah, yeah. I
Well,
guess it is. It's a partial answer to it.
yeah. Well, so just to end on an uplifting note, I do think it's so cool. Like, as much as we've talked a lot about the water problem and it, having issues and making online maybe a little less fun, it is cool stuff. Like, I got it. Like, the one thing they never miss in this game is printing cards that do interesting things. Like, I mean, when we get to our necro discussion, like I was watching the Lord of Itza video, like how did they print necro, right? Because this is obviously a busted avatar, but it's so cool. Like this is such a flavorful ability. Like that's how they printed it. Is because once you have this idea, like you gotta just print it if you're a flavor first game. And I
Yeah,
do think water is really interesting and cool. And even if there are some downsides to how strong it is right now, I'm really excited about it. I think it'll be cool with new cards, a new set. And now we're at deck size, like which I think will be
yeah,
interesting. Is for every other new set that came out, part of the game changing was the deck size changing, and from now on, it will just be the card pool growing, and like how does that transform our decks?
yeah. That is really interesting. That is really cool. I think that you're right. Water is really interesting and flavorful and cool. And like in a vacuum, this stuff is really awesome. Like it's just like
Hmm.
it's interesting. It's powerful. It's
Yeah.
swingy. It's huge. It's so cool in that way. It's only when you look at it versus Earth when it starts like, whoa, okay, well, that's a little unfair. And like that's okay. We can figure out how to make it fair. And yeah, there are busting cards other places too. We just got to find which ones are worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited. Like, let us know in the comments if you think you've got the answer to water, or if you think of other important things that we missed and sort of why water is so dominant.
Yeah, definitely. Please leave a comment. Let us know what we're missing.
Yeah, and
All right.
keep on playing beyond the ordinary, folks. See you next
Yep.
time.
Catch you next time.